It is sweet and fitting to die for one's country. I'm Acadia Einstein, and this is Strangeful Things.
Sheltering in place is not advised, as your survival cannot be ensured in that scenario.
Love has practically caused me to just get you destroyed.
Unsolved, unresolved, and super complicated.
Strangeful Things.
All right, everybody, welcome to Strangeful Things. We're here again. This time it's just Mells and me. How goes it, Mells?
Oh, you know, I'm just finer than frog's hair. Now think about that. How fine is frog's hair?
I would assume that it's very because they don't take good care of it. Because they don't have hands to wash it with.
But they live in water. They're amphibious.
Swamp water? Amphibious. For fuck's sake. I got my haircut on Sunday.
Uh-oh, look at you. Snazzy jazzy.
By friend of the show and trivia player, Melissa. So thanks, Melissa. You're the best.
Oh, thanks for making him pretty again, Melissa.
Mm-hmm. She's the bomb. And she's my oldest friend in Charlotte because one of the first things I did when I got here, since I didn't have anything else to fucking do, was go get my hair cut. And she cut it, and I've been with her ever since because I'm loyal as shit.
Look at you.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, such a touching story.
That's right. I really, really make things wonderful.
Yeah, right.
So I figure since it's just the two of us this week, I thought we could relax a little bit and I can just tell you a story. How would you like that?
Well, I would love that. Story time's my favorite time.
You can just be sure to interrupt me just as much as when we're having meetings.
You know I will.
Yeah. Well, we open our story in Huelva, Spain, which is west of Seville on the coast in 1943. A fisherman finds the body of a Royal Air Force officer floating in the water. His identification reads Major William Martin, and he has a black attaché case chained to his wrist. Now, Spain was officially neutral during World War II, but the military sort of leaned to the German side of things. And when the German intelligence services found out about the retrieved body and the briefcase and how much the Brits were trying to get it back, they wanted it bad. And they finally got a Spanish officer in Madrid to hook them up.
Now, question.
Yes.
What is attaché?
Attaché is like a helper that goes around and carries all your shit for you. So an attaché case, I assume, is just a fancy word for briefcase.
Okay. All right. I didn't know if it was a special kind of briefcase.
Well, as far as I can tell from movies, it's the kind that has a handcuff that attaches it to your wrist.
Oh, okay. All right.
So, according to History.com, in addition to other personal effects and official-looking documents, they found a letter from military authorities in London to a senior British officer in Tunisia indicating that Allied armies were preparing to cross the Mediterranean from their positions in North Africa and attack German-held Greece and Sardinia. This intelligence coup for the Nazi spy network allowed Adolf Hitler to transfer German troops from France to Greece ahead of what was believed to be a massive enemy invasion.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody knew that the Allies were going to invade Europe from the south, but nobody knew where it would be. Well, they kind of did, but we'll get to that.
Okay.
But this was like Hitler had gotten one up on us and he was ready for the attack. Except there was no attack on Greece and there never was one planned.
Oh.
The whole thing had been a setup and it worked like a charm. The papers, the plans, even the body were part of Operation Mincemeat, one of the best military cons ever pulled off.
Even the body?
Even the body.
Oh, that poor old chap.
Yes. Oh, chap.
Oh, you poor old chap. Oh.
This has been said to be the best military trickery since the Trojan horse.
Really?
Like, that's how bad they fucked with them.
Nice. And now this is terrible because I usually consider myself a buff when it comes to history, a huff, if you will. All right. I have never heard of Operation Mincemeat.
Well, you just sit back and relax then, sister, because you are going to get regaled with a story that sounds like it's completely fucking made up.
Oh, I cannot wait for that.
So, to get to the root of the story, we have to go back to 1939. Back then, it was basically England against Germany, and everybody else was kind of sitting it out. Well, Japan was in it, and Italy was in it, but they were on the German side. So essentially, it was just England by itself, as far as Europe was concerned.
Mm-hmm.
The U.S. wouldn't get in until Pearl Harbor, and the USSR would stay out of it until Hitler invaded them like a dumbass in 1941. So, England was pretty much it. And they knew that they were going to have to be crafty to beat the Germans, because there was no way they were going to hold out forever against the might of the German war machine. And you had heard of, the Blitz and how Germany just kept bombing London and all the surrounding and everything like that.
Yeah.
Even though Hitler kind of, and this would probably be a good topic for another show, he kind of had a hard-on for Britain because they were so white. He was like, you should be on my side.
Oh.
And they were like, no, we don't want to be on your side, even though, if you think about it, we do kind of look super Aryan, but no.
I was going to say that's his go-to for any come on the Aryan side, right?
Exactly. But they didn't want anything to do with it. Churchill, for himself, he loved cloak and dagger shit, and he was all for sneaky activities. And there was a lot of talk about there were straight line thinkers and there were corkscrew thinkers, and Churchill liked the corkscrew thinkers, the ones that fucking twisted everything up and made it all fuckety.
Yeah.
And he was very much in favor of that type of thing. So in 1939, there was a thing called the Trout Memo. It's a document comparing deception of an enemy in wartime with fly fishing. And the guy that wrote it was this guy, Admiral John Godfrey, who was the director of naval intelligence for Britain. But most people think that one of his assistants actually wrote the memo. And that assistant's name was Ian Fleming.
No way.
The exact same fucking Ian Fleming that wrote the James Bond books.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I wonder where he got his material from.
Yeah, I know, right? Well, I think that if he had written the story I'm going to tell you in a James Bond book, people would have thought that it was too far-fetched.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Oh, now that gets me excited for this.
So now, the Trout Memo was going on and on about how you have to be tricky to beat the enemy. And part of it says, the trout fisher casts patiently all day. He frequently changes his venue and his lures. If he is frightened to fish, he may give the water a rest for half an hour. But his main endeavor to attract fish by something he sends out from his boat is incessant. And then it goes on to describe like 50 different things that they could do to fuck with the enemy. Like an actual list. And one of them was, I tried as hard as I could with all my Googling skills to find the actual memo so that I could read the list of shit.
Yeah.
And I couldn't find it, but I did find an excerpt from a book about this other author named Basil Thompson.
Basil?
Yes, Basil Thompson.
Basil.
But one of the ones that they thought that they'd be able to do was drop soccer ball. Well, they say footballs.
Right.
Footballs painted with luminous paint to attract submarines. Put fucking fake messages in bottles from a made up U-boat captain that was like talking shit about Hitler. send out a fake treasure ship packed with commandos so people would be like, oh boy, treasure. And there'd just be a bunch of soldiers in it that would jump out and kill them.
Oh my gosh.
Put fake news in the newspaper because they knew, and we'll find out later, that the Germans did actually read the London Times.
Oh, really?
And one of the super shitty ones was put tins of food, like with a bunch of different languages written on it. This is food, but actually have it be explosive. So some poor fucker that went, oh boy, sardines, actually would get blown up.
No.
Yep.
Don't eat that Spam.
I know, exactly. So none of those they did. But what they did do was number 28.
Okay.
Under the heading, a suggestion, and in parentheses, not a very nice one. The following suggestion is used in a book by Basil Thompson. A corpse dressed as an airman with dispatches in his pockets could be dropped on the coast, supposedly from a parachute that had failed. I understand there is no difficulty in obtaining corpses at the Naval Hospital, but of course it would have to be a fresh one.
Oh, no. All right.
Right?
So the ruse was someone that died in a parachuting accident, but they're also part of the British officers.
That's kind of how it started.
Okay.
There was there were these guys that like worked way down in the basement of the intelligence agencies. And the boss's name was Ewan Montague, and the other guy's name.
Oh, no.
His name was Charles Chumley.
Okay.
But he spelled it CHOLMONDELEY.
What?
And that somehow came out to Chumley.
No way. That's Chamalanda Lee.
Yeah, exactly. Like, but the L and the O and the N and the D and the E are all silent, apparently.
Wow.
Because of this fucking guy. And Chumley's version of the idea was, a body is obtained from one of the London hospitals. The lungs are filled with water and documents are disposed in an inside pocket. The body is then dropped by a coastal command aircraft. On being found, the supposition in the enemy's mind may well be that one of our aircraft has either been shot or forced down and that this is one of their passengers. So, this was the idea, the germ of the idea.
Okay.
And the reason why it was such a big deal at the time was this was 1942, and we were like America had entered the fight, and Russia was kicking Hitler's fucking ass. And if anyone, and I mentioned this later, but I really want to point this out to everybody listening. If you want to know the real history of World War II, the answer is not there was World War II until America came and won it. The answer is, if it wasn't for the Soviet Union, we'd all be speaking German.
Mm.
Because for every 10 soldiers killed in World War II, 9 of them were killed by Russians.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. And as far as casualties, because Stalin was a fuckhead, and his plan was, well, we have plenty of people. We'll just throw people at them until they get tired. And between starvation and forced cannibalism and just military deaths and everything like that, Russia lost 20 million people.
Holy shit.
In World War II. So they were fucking hard asses, and Hitler was stupid. Like, so if Hitler had never invaded the USSR and it just said, you guys just stay over there and I'll take the rest of the stuff, and Russia, and if the USSR had been fine with that, we would have been fucked.
Right.
Because he spent a lot of time fucking around trying to get, just like Napoleon did. That's why the old joke was like, why would you do the same thing that Napoleon did? Because Napoleon took over all Europe, and then he went, I'm going to attack Russia, and he got fucked too.
Yeah, he did.
Anyways. So this was before D-Day and all that stuff, but we still had to invade Europe. Like, we couldn't fight Hitler in Europe if we weren't actually in Europe.
Right.
Now, we had done well in North Africa. So everybody knew that it was just a matter of time that we were going to cross the Mediterranean and invade from the south. Everybody thought it was going to be Sicily. because Sicily was easy to get to. It was self-contained. And as a matter of fact, that was exactly what the Allies' plan was. We're going to invade Sicily.
Right.
And Hitler knew it. So he had been building up defenses in Sicily all this time because Hitler was crazy, but someone around him must have went, oh, they're definitely going to attack Sicily. So we better, beef it up and whatever.
Right, right.
So this whole plan that the British had was to try and make the invasion of Sicily easier. So that was the whole idea of the deception.
Gotcha. Was to make it easier. Right.
Exactly. Now, first, they had to get a body.
Oh, Lord. I cannot wait to hear this.
You would think that it would be a hell of a lot easier then than now to get a body, but it wasn't because, like, even though they were, it was a war and there were a lot of casualties and everything like that, it wasn't like there weren't a bunch of bodies around, but you can't just tell somebody, oh, we're going to take your loved one's corpse. Why? Oh, we can't tell you. Gotta go.
Oh my gosh. Like, could you imagine?
Right. It was a big fucking secret because if this didn't stay a complete secret, it would never, ever, ever work.
Right.
Because they knew there were fucking German spies in Britain.
Oh, sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so they enlisted the help of a coroner in London with the fucking epic name of Bentley Purchase.
Oh, Bentley Purchase, you said.
Yes, that's me, Bentley Purchase.
Oh.
See, I deal in dead people.
Hey, old chap, I'm Bentley.
Mhm.
Oh, I deal in dead people, and you can purchase a Bentley from me if you'd like.
That's exactly. I have the best car on the block. So he finally found one.
Okay.
A guy named Glinder Michael was born in Aberbargode in Monmouthshire in South Wales. Now, he had a rough fucking life. He was he was just a laborer and everything like that. His father had been a coal miner, but his father killed himself when he was just when Michael was 15.
Oh.
His mother died when he was 31.
Oh, shit.
He didn't have a fucking home. He had nobody. He ended up in London, and his body, well, not his body yet. He was found in an abandoned warehouse, and he had eaten rat poison.
Oh, no.
Now, some people think that he did it on purpose to commit suicide. Some people think that since the way they did rat poison back then was it was a kind of a paste that they just rubbed on bread, that he may have just been trying to eat the bread and ended up eating the rat
so like
poison.
an
Either way,
accidental death.
Yeah.
Oh, that's terrible.
Either way, he got super, super sick from it, and he died 2 days later in the hospital.
Oh, no.
Now, the way that rat poison back then worked was it contained phosphorus. And the phosphorus reacts with the hydrochloric acid in your stomach, and it makes this toxic gas. And it wasn't enough to kill him outright. It just fucked up his liver, so he died of liver failure.
Oh, my goodness.
Now, for Bentley Purchase, though, this was a guy that had absolutely no family. He was the epitome of unmourned and unloved. He had no people whatsoever. He was the right age group. He was 34.
Oh, my gosh. That's so young.
I know. And he had died in such a way that you would be able to pull off saying that it was somebody that died in a plane crash and was floating in the water.
Right, right.
So they put him in a freezer and they said, okay, now we got our guy. But here's the thing. We'll never tell anybody his name because he's not going to be Glinder Michael. And Glinder was spelled Glynndwr. It's
All
very
right.
Welsh.
What's up with the
Yeah.
spellings? Well, I guess I shouldn't say that. I'm not in this part of the world, so.
In Wales, they have like lots of W's and Y's and shit, and really like the longest place name in the world is a Welsh town, and there's lots of crazy spellings and stuff like that. So,
Okay.
but they wouldn't tell anybody his name.
But it was pronounced Glinder?
Because Glinder.
Okay. All right.
Yep. He wasn't going to be Glinder Michael.
Well, right.
Glinder Michael was dead.
Forget
He was going to
Glinder.
be somebody else.
Forget Glinder.
Forget him. Forget it.
Forget it.
Then they had to start building the new person. And first they were like, all right, well, we got to dress him like a soldier. And they decided they were going to make him a Royal Marine. A Royal Marine Major William Martin.
Oh, Will, huh?
Yes. Getting the uniform was easy because they needed to make him somebody who was high ranking enough that it would have made sense that he was carrying sensitive papers.
Right.
But not high ranking enough that they would be like, well, we've never heard of this guy. You know what I mean? Because the German intelligence knew who all the officers were and shit like that. So they basically made him a middle management kind of nobody.
Oh.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
So.
Which is, you know what? In the irony of it is that in his death, he was so much more than it seems in his life. Oh.
Yep. It's kind of shitty.
Oh.
So getting the uniform was easy because it was a war and they were making lots of uniforms. Right. However, one of the things that was very difficult to get was underwear because now you just think about how everybody's freaking out because someone's asking them to wear a mask at Costco.
Right.
During World War II in Britain, underwear was rationed.
Oh my. So you got like one pair of underwear and that was it.
Yes. You got your underwear and then you had to wait until the next underwear disbursement time to get new underwear.
Oh, can you imagine the holes in those underwear? I mean, I'm not even trying to be funny. Like that's just crazy.
And the fact is that they're like, no, we need underwear we need whatever we use to make underwear. We need to make other shit for the war. So fuck off. Just wear, like, everything was rationed.
Yeah. Yeah.
So neither Chumley or Montague were like, I'm not giving up my underwear. Fuck that. I need it. Because, like, they weren't treated any better than anybody else. They didn't have special underwear.
You ain't getting these draws.
Nope. But they ended up getting the T-shirt, the underwear, and the socks from the University of Oxford. Because 2 years earlier, this fancy historian, H.A.L. Fisher, who was like the dean of the new college or some shit. Yeah, they said a bunch of fancy stuff in the documentary that I was watching, which a lot of this came from that. If you search Operation Mincemeat on YouTube, if you want to see a good documentary on it, I can't tell who made it because it's like a repost, but I think it's from the BBC. This guy was like super fancy and whatever like that, but he just happened to get run over by a truck.
Oh no.
But since he lived at the college, all his shit was still there, even though they said that he had gotten run over like 2 years earlier. Okay. So I don't know why they kept it.
I was like, the math is not adding up for me. I mean, they kept that for 2 years.
I guess, because nobody wanted to live in the old boy's place and steal his underwear. I don't know.
Oh, man.
Whatever the story is, they got underwear and socks for our boy as a result.
Okay. All right.
So now they had the look and they had him dressed. Now they had to make him a person because if they just threw a corpse out there, they were dealing with sophisticated spies. And they weren't about to just like dangle him out there. Like no real person would just be carrying a secret message.
Right, right.
So what they started constructing was a life around Major Martin. And they did it by creating what's known in the spy business as pocket litter. Now, you think of all the shit you have in your wallet or your pocketbook or whatever like that, like fucking George from Seinfeld. Like, I know right now that I have the claim check for my fucking power washer sitting in my wallet that when I finally get my power washer someday, I'll be done with it. But they had to create this for our boy.
Right. Like, you're not going to find somebody that's just got like an ID and a couple of dollars and a couple of like cards.
Although, honestly, I would think that if you're in the army, that they don't want you like carrying around all your bullshit.
True.
But I guess that wasn't the case because they made receipts, they made bus tickets, and that kind of shit.
Well, he was obviously supposed to be on his way somewhere, I would imagine, right?
Well, yeah. Oh, he was on his way somewhere.
But I don't know if he was parachuting out of an airplane.
No, he wasn't parachuting. He was flying somewhere.
Oh, and there would have been like an accident, like a crash or something.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Exactly.
So then if he was traveling somewhere, maybe he would have a lot of shit in his wallet then.
Well, that was what they thought because they invented a bunch of shit for him. And to ensure, they also put some letters. And to make sure that the letters would remain, like that the ink wouldn't wash off, Montague asked MI5, by the way, the difference between, you've heard of MI5 and MI6.
Right. Yep.
So the difference between MI5 and MI6 is MI6 is James Bond. He's a spy and he goes to other places to do spying.
Okay.
MI5 is in charge of catching spies in Britain.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
So the equivalent for us would be like the CIA is our spies, and I think it's the NSA that works to catch spies in the United States, or maybe it's the FBI. I don't fucking know.
I think it's national security, right? So NSA.
Yeah, they better get on the job. I think it's NSA. That's the equivalent. So they said, well, we want these letters to actually work, and let them read them, and we're going to be dumping them in the ocean. So you better give us some ink that won't wash off. And the MI5 people, scientists, they actually did. They were like, all right, well, if you use these ink brands, then you'll be fine.
Okay.
So here's an example of one of the letters.
Okay.
Major W. Martin, Royal Marines, Army and Navy Club, Pall Mall, like the cigarettes, London, SW1. Dear Sir, I am given to understand that in spite of repeated applications, your overdraft amounting to £79, 19 shillings and 2 pence still outstands. In the circumstances, I am now writing to inform you that unless this amount, plus interest at 4% to date of payment, is received forthwith, we shall have no alternative but to take the necessary steps to protect our interests. Yours faithfully, Joint General Kilmeade.
79 pounds?
Yes.
Damn, that's a lot of money.
Yes, it's a lot of money. It's and we're going to get to how much money it was in a little bit.
Okay.
But the fact is that they made him a deadbeat, the poor fucker. Now, I'm getting letters like this all the time right now.
Who hadn't been there, all right?
Yeah, I know, right? But this was how much detail they did a fake letter from his father, and his father was like a pretentious windbag and shit like that. But then they were like, okay, well, he needs to have a girlfriend.
Oh.
So they had a contest. They sent out to all the secretary pools of MI5 and MI6 that said, hey, just send us pictures of yourselves and you might get picked to be the girlfriend of this person that we're inventing. And Jean Leslie, a secretary in the MI5 typing pool, was selected. And the picture of her, which you can still find to this day, is her standing in front of the Thames in a bathing suit with a towel. Like, it's not sexy or anything like that, but it's like 1942
right.
Sexy. You know what I mean?
It's this era sexy.
Exactly. And it kind of bothered the MI6 gals because they thought it should have been one of them to be Major Bill's main squeeze. But nope. They took the pic of Jean Leslie and they turned it into Pam.
Oh, no, not Pam.
Yep. And Pam wrote letters to her man.
Oh.
But in actuality, the letters were written by Hester Leggett.
Oh, no.
Hester Leggett was the head secretary of MI5. She was an unmarried elderly woman, but she wrote love letters like nobody's business. Get a load of this.
I cannot wait.
Yeah, just hold on to your
knickers,
your bloomers.
Hang on, hold on to your ration undies.
Yeah, exactly.
Hello all. My name's Paul, and I'm the creator and host of the True Crime Enthusiast podcast, a show that looks at and recounts a variety of cases from the shores of the UK. Some are solved, some are unsolved, but they always tend to be the more obscure and unfamiliar. On the True Crime Enthusiast podcast, you'll find tales ranging from teenage vampires to sex-crazed killer farmers, from exorcisms gone wrong in the most extreme manner to the most horrific mask-wearing maniacs that you can imagine. Each tale is as true as the sky is blue, and the UK claims the lot. So if you're intrigued, then why not join me each week as I trawl through the archives for these and much more. You can find me on iTunes, Spotify, and pretty much wherever you grab your shows from. So I hope you can join me and become enthusiastic about the True Crime Enthusiast podcast.
I do think, dearest, that seeing people off at a railway station is one of the poorest forms of sport. A train going out can leave a howling great gap in one's life. That lovely golden day we spent together. How I know it has been said before, but if only time could stand still for just a minute. Bill, darling, do let me know when you get fixed and can make some more plans. And don't please let them send you off into the blue in that horrible way they do nowadays. Now that we've found each other out of the whole world, I don't think I could bear it. All my love, Pam.
Ooh, whoa, now that
Right?
was smoking, all right?
I mean, that's positively scandalous.
I mean,
Well, at least from the standpoint of, I don't know, 1942.
yeah, I'm sweating here. Woo.
Well, the made-up letter by Hester Leggett got the fictitious Bill Martin so wound up that he bought an engagement ring from the fancy S.J. Phillips Limited of Bond Street in London.
Ooh.
Yes. Now, according to the receipt that he was carrying when he was found, he paid £53, 10 shillings, and 6 pence. Why do they have three kinds of money?
I don't know. I've been wondering the same thing.
Like, why isn't it pounds and pence? What the fuck are the shillings?
What are the
Dimes?
shillings? Well, I was wondering if it was another type of coin, but I don't, I'm so uncultured. I only know American money, and that's
I
terrible.
don't know. Well, so in the documentary, they went to that store because, of course, it still exists because it's fucking England. And like, because everything that ever existed in England is, for the most part, still there.
Yeah, exactly.
Like when one of the times that I went with my brother, and no shit, he's like, we have to go to this restaurant. We have to go to this restaurant. I was at it last time I was here, and I was like, why? What's the big deal? And he's like, well, number one, they have their own personal game preserve in the north of England, and anything that you can order that night had been running around in the game preserve that morning. And I'm like,
my.
all right, well, that's one thing. And I'm like, but what else? And he said, because this was Charles Dickens's favorite restaurant.
Oh, now that is really cool.
How fucked up is that, right? It's the same
That's cool.
restaurant. They have so much shit. We were walking down the street and we walked by the place where William Wallace was drawn and quartered. And you know how we knew? There was an eensy-weensy little plaque on the wall that said, this is where William Wallace was drawn and quartered. Like, so fucking Braveheart got killed right there on that street. And it didn't even warrant a sign that you could see from your car.
That is crazy, though. I mean, like,
right?
What do we have here? I guess we've got some old, like, Wild Wild West 6-shooters.
Yeah, but like, I remember 100 years, like, Dublin was founded in 986.
God, that's absolutely nuts.
So it always just reminds me of the Eddie Izzard bit when he went, I'm from Europe, where the history comes from.
Yes, exactly.
It's kind of true. So when they went to see the store, they were like, all right, well, look at this receipt, and how much would that be in today's money? And the jewelry store guy goes, well, based on the description of the ring, I think this one would be the most equivalent. And he said this would cost £13,000 today.
What?
Now I was like, hold the fucking phone, because I went to my, our very trusty inflation money calculator, and 53 pounds back then would have been about 2,400 pounds today, which means that the 70 something that he owed the bank, that was some real fucking money that he supposedly owed the bank.
How could he be in debt to the bank and then also pay this much for a ring?
Well, maybe that's where he overdrafted. Maybe he wrote him a bad check.
He wrote a bad check.
Right? He's kiting checks all over London. So I don't know where the other 11,000 pounds came from in the inflation, unless it's the fact that diamonds are fucking fake and they're not valuable whatsoever. And we should do an episode on that sometime too, about how that's all fucking bullshit.
Yeah.
Fuckers. Anyways, they had crafted this persona of Major Martin, but they kept convincing themselves that they needed to make it more and more convincing. Plus, honestly, I think they were kind of just fucking around too, because it wasn't time for them to actually do it. So they were just doing shit. Like Chumley wore the uniform every day so that it would look worn.
Oh, that's ingenious though.
Yeah, it is pretty smart. It's better than just putting it on the corpse and then dragging it around behind a bicycle.
Oh my gosh, I don't even want to imagine that.
Well,
just don't mind your business, folks. Don't worry about me.
Yeah, exactly. But what's his name was still frozen in the morgue. So
yeah.
So Montague, whose family had been sent to America at the beginning of the war for their safety, he started asking out Jean Leslie. The fake
You
Pam.
better quit.
I'm not.
Fake Pam?
Yes. He asked her out, and they went on dates.
So Charlemagne de Lamballe was asking out Pam.
No, not Chumley. Montague, the boss.
Oh, Montague.
And they kept
my
talking
word.
about what big feet he had, so maybe that had something to do with it.
Oh, stop. Just
They did one of the old. They had some of the people that had worked there during the documentary, and she's like, "Oh, you always saw his feet before you saw him because they were so big when he'd come walking up to the desks." Yeah,
Pam, you hussy.
I know, right? And Pam was like, "Yeah, well, I was, it wasn't like I was seeing, a couple guys at the time, whatever, like that, and I think I just got caught up in the excitement of it all." But I gave him a copy of the picture, and she signed it, Bill, till death do us part, love Pam. Now, his name isn't Bill. Her name isn't Pam. So she obviously did it as kind of a joke. But then
was it though?
Montague started writing her fucking love letters signed as Bill.
Oh my God.
So
okay, wait
here's
a minute.
an example.
Hold on.
Yes, I shit you not.
Before we get into the example, I got to make sure that I'm following this correctly.
All right.
Montague has a family in America who is there for their safety.
Yes.
And then that includes a wife, obviously.
Yes.
And while he's trying to find a fake girlfriend for a fake dude,
right,
he starts also having a relationship with her, and then she gives him the same picture that they put on Bill, right?
Correct.
And she signed it in the code names, though, to Montague.
Right.
No. Okay. Wow. All right. Let's hear what you do.
Pam, dearest, I just love the photograph. Sounds as if you have a foreboding. I have. And from your inscription on the photo, I think you have the same fear. I hope you meet someone worthier than me. Ever yours, Bill. P.S. Try the Royal Navy Volunteer Reserve next time.
What?
Because obviously, since her thing said till death do us part, he was all like, oh, well, I guess you think I'm going to die. I probably will, blah, blah, blah. Because you're already dead, Bill. But
oh, you know what? That could have really fucked something up, though, if it was somehow.
Oh, it did.
Oh, okay.
Because number one, he said, try somebody from the Royal Navy Volunteer Reserve. Guess who was from the Royal Navy Volunteer Reserve?
I bet Montague. It was Montague. Oh, my gosh.
Right. So it got so bananas that Montague's mother, who he was living with because his family had got sent to America, she wrote the fucking wife to say there was trouble with some bitch named Pam. So the wife came steaming back to fix Pam's shit.
Wait a minute, Ma, what did you do?
I shit you not. She ratted him out.
What kind of mother? Some bitch named Pam.
I know, right? She's selling out Pam. Pam's like, yeah, I'm not real. What are you going to do to me, old lady?
Pam's like, whatever, bitch, I'm not real. Oh my God, I cannot.
So by now, it was coming up time. They had done enough. Like they had everything that they were going to need for making him as real of a person as they could possibly make.
Okay.
So they needed the letter that was actually going to be the one to trick the Germans.
Mm-hmm.
So it was supposed to be from this guy, General Sir Archibald Nye, and it was going to be written to General Harold Alexander, the British commander in North Africa. So they wrote like 1 million drafts of it. And every single fucking time they were like, nah, this isn't good enough. This isn't good enough. This isn't good enough. So then they had a brainwave and they were like, hey, General Nye, can you write a letter to General Alexander and say such and so forth? And he was like a complete fucking windbag and he was all for it.
Oh.
So this is just the beginning. This is the opening. My dear Alex, I am taking advantage of sending you a personal letter by hand of one of Mountbatten's officers to give you the inside history of our recent exchanges of cables about Mediterranean operations and their attendant cover plan. You may have felt our decisions were somewhat arbitrary, but I can assure you that the COS committee gave the most careful consideration both to your recommendations and to Jumbo's.
Jumbos?
I wish we could do a story about Jumbo.
Who is Jumbo?
He's just some other general guy. We've had recent information that the Bosch have been reinforcing and strengthening their defenses in Greece and Crete, and CIGs felt that our forces for the assault were insufficient. It was agreed by the chiefs of staff that the 5th Division should be reinforced by 1 brigade group for the assault on the beach south of Cape Araxos, and that a similar reinforcement should be made for 56th Division at Kalamata. Well, I guess where Kalamata olives come from.
Oh.
We are embarking the necessary forces and shipping. And it goes on and on and on and on.
This was just the beginning of the letter?
Yes.
Oh.
And it goes on and on. Like if we wanted the show to be an hour and a half long,
you would read it.
I could read the whole thing. But it was important because, number one, it got across that they were invading Greece. But the other thing that it got across was that their plan to trick the Germans was to make the Germans think that they were going to invade Sicily.
Right.
So they're like, oh, blah, 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 blah. If you invade, if we've done fake air operations into Sicily and we've been looking like we're building up troops to go into Sicily, and that's all part of the trick. So they were covering their actual operation while making the Germans, or hopefully making the Germans, think that the real operation was going to be in Greece. So it was really like a fucking smart plan.
Mm-hmm.
And having the fucking blowhard do it himself, like, worked a treat because, like, they never would have been able to do it on their own. They also put an eyelash in the letter.
An eyelash?
Yes. And this was fucking smart, too. You know how, like, sometimes in spy movies, you'll see people will, like, tape a hair across the door so that they'll know if somebody opened it?
Yeah. Oh.
Well, they put the eyelash in the letter because if the British got the letter back and the eyelash was gone, they'll know that somebody opened it and read it.
Oh, my. Hold on. I'm making a note. I'm going to start saving my eyelashes. I got one on my desk right now. Let me see if I can.
Make a wish and blow it right into a secret letter and fuck with Scott.
You read it.
The Lord Montague.
To Chumalama Ding Dong.
So it was showtime because they had the real letter. They had everything. It was getting close to the time when the invasion was actually going to happen. And they had to do it kind of far in advance because if they did it like the night before the invasion, Hitler wouldn't have time to send any troops anywhere, so it wouldn't have done any good.
Right.
So they go to the mortuary to get the body. The only problem was the feet were frozen solid and they couldn't get the boots on.
Oh, no.
So they, those like electric heaters, the ones that just get all red and glowy?
Yes, I do.
They hooked one of those bad boys up until they like thawed the feet out enough so that they could bend the ankles so that they could get the boots on.
Oh, my. Okay. Out of everything I've heard so far, this might be the most disturbing.
I know, right? Poor fucker.
Oh.
So they dressed him up. They put all the shit in all of his pockets, his creditor letters and the letters from Pam and the picture and the receipt for the engagement ring and everything like that, which, by the way, the jewelry store could not confirm that they ever sold such a ring.
Huh.
So either the intelligence services either made it up and just forged the receipt, or they stole it and never paid him for it.
Oh, shit.
So either one is funny. So they put the body of Major Martin in a canister labeled optical instruments and bolted it shut.
Okay.
Now, MI5 had a chauffeur who also happened to be the best race car driver in all of Britain. And his name might be better than Bentley Purchase. It's St. John Ratcliffe Stewart Jock Horsefall.
Oh, all right.
Yes. And I also found out while I was doing this that if your name is St. John, it might be shortened to St. John.
Oh, well, that's nifty.
Yeah, that is kind of neat. Anyway, this guy was like a super good driver, and he had his own van. So Montague and Chumley got in the back with the canister, and off they went. Problem was...
Was what? He's a race car driver?
Well, yes, he's a race car driver, so he drove super fast, but he was also nearsighted and he refused to wear glasses. So he basically Mr. Magoo'd it the 500 miles up to the fucking Scotland with the man can and Chumley and Montague fucking bumbling around in the back.
Oh my God, I cannot.
And apparently, at one point, he was going towards a rotary and missed it and just drove straight through the middle of it. Like, he never even turned.
I'm just imagining Mr. Magoo driving this whole thing.
Right? Road hog. So eventually they get to Scotland. And they were so proud of it that they took a few fucking snapshots commemorating the occasion. And one of them had Montague sitting on the fucking canister in the back of the truck. He was probably going to send it to Pam. Get a load of this. Like,
oh, what are you thinking your bill now, Pam?
Yeah, I know. Straddling it, pretending it's his dick. Hey, look at this. Oh.
He had big feet.
Right?
God.
Exactly. Look at this canister. So the HMS Seraph was the submarine that was going to deliver our guy to the Spanish coast. Now, I wasn't sure why they had put him in a canister, but that became apparent when they loaded the fucking thing into the torpedo tube.
Wait. Wait a minute.
I swear to God. They put him in like he was a torpedo.
Oh my God.
And the crew didn't ask any questions. They're like, why are we putting a thing called optical instruments in the torpedo tube? Just shut up, sailor, and do your job. So they did. And they were hanging around with the thing for 4 days because it took them 4 days to get where they were going. And they didn't know that there was a dead guy in the fucking canister. So apparently it must have been really firmly closed because he didn't really stink.
You know what that reminds me of?
What?
Don't be suspicious. Don't be suspicious.
Don't be suspicious.
Don't be suspicious.
Don't look at my canister.
Don't look at my canister.
So the sailors just did all their sailory shit, and all that time, none of them knew there was a poor fucker named Glinder Michael who had committed suicide by eating rat poison, or just ate rat poison by accident, had been turned into a fake person named William Martin, Royal Marines, whose sole purpose on this earth was to fuck with Hitler.
Oh my God. Can this get any better?
Oh, it kind of does.
Okay.
So, They chose the town of Huelva because they knew that there was a German spy in the city named Klaus.
Of course, his name was Klaus.
Yeah, I know, right? Who was like a super good spy, and he had been fucking with the British all along because he would just look out into the water until he saw some British boats go by, and then he would just call up the Germans and go, "Why don't you go sink those boats?" Like,
oh my gosh.
I don't know why they didn't like catch on sooner and just go further away from the beach so that he couldn't see him, but whatever. But they knew that he was there, and they knew that he was a very straight line thinker, not a corkscrew thinker.
Oh, I gotcha.
So that's why they picked this area. So they were 500 yards offshore, and after they were done waiting for a morning fishing fleet to go over their heads, because it was dawn and they were going out to fish for sardines or whatever, they surfaced and they took Martin's body out of the cylinder. Now, would it have been cooler if they had shot him out of the torpedo tube and had the thing open up and he just bobbed up to the surface? Yes. But apparently, the only reason the can was used was so that they'd have someplace to put him on the submarine where he wouldn't roll around
this poor
and take up a bunch of room. So they actually just did it for luggage purposes.
I mean, he literally was in the overhead compartment, pretty much.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So they checked that all his pocket litter was intact. And then the captain gave Glinder Michael his only British funeral as they slipped his body over the side. He recited Psalm 39, which goes, "I will keep my mouth as if it were with a bridle, held my tongue and spake nothing. I kept silence," which is about the best thing for a spy that you can say.
Oh, yeah, I love it.
And the captain had been the only person on the submarine that knew what was in the can. So I guess it must have been quite a surprise for whoever helped him open it. Like, oh boy, optical instruments. Oh no, it's a dead guy. Like,
that's no optical instrument I've ever seen before. Right?
Wait a minute, maybe it's a sophisticated telescope. Open up his butt. So it's like,
well, optical, maybe it's a sight for sore eyes right there, right?
So this fisherman named Antonio Ray Maria found the body floating, and he dragged it up to shore, and they brought it to the cemetery in Huelva, because that's what else are you going to do with a dead body? They didn't bring it to the cops or anything like that. They brought it to the cemetery, and 2 doctors came out to do an autopsy, and they took all the letters and the pocket litter and shit, and they set it off to the side to dry. Now, since it was obviously a British soldier, the British consul was present for the autopsy. And he was in on the whole thing. Now, this was like the most risky part of the whole thing, because our boy had been sitting in a freezer for 3 months.
God.
And any doctor that's not a fucking shitwit would be able to tell the difference between somebody who's been dead for 3 months and somebody who was supposed to have been bobbing around in the ocean for a couple weeks.
Right, they'd be pretty fresh.
So Montague and Chumley had told the British consul, yeah, you got to speed it up in there. You can't let them like look too close or anything like that. So essentially the British consul was like, well, old chaps, it's pretty hot and smelly in this little room. Why don't you say we wrap it up? And the doctors were like, okay, fine.
I'm sure.
Like they completely went along with it. And they put on the death certificate that he drowned, which was completely fucking wrong, because it turned out that Chumley's original idea of putting water in the lungs, like, what's his name? Bentley Purchase was like, yeah, no, people that die in plane crashes don't survive the plane crash and then drown in the water. He's like, right. They die well before that, so you don't have to worry about putting any water in the lung. Dumb. But they still said that he drowned, and that was that. They sent the briefcase to the Spanish Naval Office in Huelva, and the body was buried with military honors in the Spanish cemetery there in Huelva. And the German spy knew about the whole fucking thing because he was a spy, and that was his job. To know shit like that.
Right.
Now, Montague and Chumley knew from the consul that all this had gone down, they started sending a bunch of cables to the British consulate in Madrid, wanting to know what happened to the documents. And these were picked off by the Germans, as the British knew that they would be, because it's all corkscrew shit.
Right.
Secret papers, probably in black briefcase. Earliest possible information required. It should be recovered at once. Care should be taken that it does not get into undesirable hands.
Oh.
So they were making a big deal about fucking get the briefcase from this guy that you found.
Right.
Now, Klaus was trying to get the briefcase. And because it was locked up in the Spanish Navy barracks, I don't know, their office or whatever.
Yeah.
Now, the Spanish refused to give Klaus the fucking briefcase, and they sent it to Madrid instead. And that was a big fucking problem, because the whole reason that they picked Spain for all this was because Spain was kind of like, hey, Germans, we're kind of on your side, even though we're technically neutral. But the fucking straight edges in Huelva were like, nope, we're sending it to Madrid. Forget it, German spy. We're not giving you any of this shit.
Oh.
Which meant, and that would fuck everything. Like, if the Germans didn't get the briefcase, then it would never have a chance to work. So
it was all for naught.
Yes. And then it was no longer Klaus's problem, because it wasn't in Huelva anymore. It was Major Karl Erich Kuhlenthal's problem, as he was Hitler's top spy in all of Spain.
Oh, wow. The luck.
Yep. Now, the Brits had broken the German codes in Spain, but they hadn't heard anything yet, and they were fucking shitting themselves. The Allies were getting ready to invade Sicily, and like we talked about, the Germans were ready for them to come and invade Sicily, but that whole thing, based on the entire plan, was going to fall apart. But Kuhlenthal had a guy inside the Spanish Navy, and he got the letters and all the shit with it given to the Germans for 1 hour. The guy was like, you can have it for an hour. You can take all the pictures of it you want. You can do anything you want with it, but then you have to give it back.
Right.
So they had a little photo shoot of all the stuff. Kuhlenthal examined it all, and without ever asking for a second autopsy of the body or doing any follow-up questions or anything like that, he just said, yep, this all looks legit, and sent it to Berlin.
Okay.
Now, one of the reasons people think that he may not have tried too hard to verify it all is because he had a Jewish grandmother, and he was trying to make good with the bosses, like, oh, look at all this cool shit that I found. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
So the spy bosses in Germany, they reviewed it and examined it, and it got blessed by Nazi intelligence, and it got sent up the chain. Now, Joseph Goebbels, the minister of propaganda, was not so convinced. They found in his private diary that he wondered if the British were tricking them.
Oh.
But by then, it had gotten to Hitler.
Oh.
And Hitler believed it.
So it was a success.
And since Hitler believed it, that meant that it didn't matter what Goebbels thought, and it didn't do you any good to contradict Hitler, because he's Hitler and you know what'll happen.
Yeah.
So you just didn't cross him. And it took 2 weeks for the letter to get from Martin's wrist to Hitler's eyeballs, which isn't bad.
No.
I guess. You know?
But this, I mean, considering it was coming from Spain over to Germany, no.
Yep. Not bad at all. Now, on May 12th, 1943, the code breakers found there was a message going to the German Mediterranean commanders letting them know they needed to be preparing for an invasion of Greece. And that night, Churchill got a message stating, mincemeat swallowed, hook, line, and sinker. The number of German divisions defending Greece went from 1 to 8. They sent entire divisions to defend.
Wow. 8.
And we never even went near Greece. We just attacked Sicily like we were going to the whole time. And they conquered the island in a month with far fewer casualties than their worst fears had planned for. Like, apparently, the British were worried that on the first 2 days, they would lose 300 ships in the invasion. They lost 12.
Oh, wow.
Because they took not only did they take people away from there, but because we took Sicily so relatively, I mean, we invaded with 160,000 troops.
Right.
And it took us a month to get it, but then that ended up leading to Mussolini getting overthrown and hung upside down in the street and burned.
Mm-hmm.
It also meant that Hitler had to move troops to the south and call off sending more troops to the Soviet Union. And we know what the Soviet Union did, so them staying in the fight was better.
Right.
So, as for Glinda Michael, this whole thing was a giant success. Everything about it worked. It worked like a fucking charm. We ended up winning the war, obviously. And in that Spanish cemetery, it says William Martin, born 29 March 1907, died 24 April 1943. And then it says, beloved son of John Glinder Martin and the late Antonia Martin of Cardiff, Wales, dulce et decorum est pro patria mori. And the Latin phrase translates as it is sweet and fitting to die for one's country.
Oh.
Now, they used the real parents, but they said that the name was William Martin because they kept it a fucking secret.
Right.
Until one guy did like the British equivalent of a Freedom of Information Act, and he was just leafing through some shit and everything like that, and he came across the name Glinda Martin.
Oh, my.
Now, in the subsequent years, they had made a movie about this. Like the movie was called The Man Who Never Was. Like there was a bunch of books written about it and everything like that, but nobody knew who the guy was. And here he was looking at this official paper that said Glinda Martin right in it. So it leaked. So they changed the headstone.
Aw.
Glinda Michael served as Major William Martin.
Oh, that is so nice.
In 1998.
Oh, well, I mean,
is when they added it.
At least he got it, though.
But a plaque commemorating Glinda Michael was added to the war memorial in Arbor Bargode, where he was born. And it says, and I have no idea how to pronounce Welsh, so if I do it wrong, you can please feel free to correct me. Idin Nafu Eriad. And the translation for that is the man who never was.
Oh, wow. I mean, what a story. Jesus.
Right?
Wow. That's amazing.
That's pretty fun.
That was a great story. And I mean, again, I never heard of Operation Mincemeat until now. So.
It's the most delicious operation ever.
Oh, man. Oh, you know.
Other than Operation Ring Ding.
Oh, ring-a-ding-ding. You know, I was thinking, good thing that no one opened up some mincemeat and had an explosive in there.
You're right. Oh, that would have
been terrible.
Can you imagine that as just like a lunchbox bobbing along in the water? Hey, look, we're going to free. Oh, my hands.
My hands.
That's some fucked up shit right there.
Wow.
So I'm glad that you liked your story time.
I know. It was wonderful. I'm going to sleep tight and have sweet dreams of, all of this spy fuckery.
Yep. Spy fuckery is a good way to put it. And I have to give a special shout out to Kenny, because this was a story that he had wanted to tell. And I tried to get him for the episode, but I couldn't make the scheduling work.
Well, thank you, Kenny, for this amazing story.
Yep. And I guess if you want to talk to us about it, you can get Mells on Twitter at MellsBells84 or her fancy Instagram at Superficial Mells, because she's very fancy on Instagram. She does stories, don't you know? I don't know how to do that. I don't even know what my Instagram is called. Shuey, who wasn't here with us this week because he's a goddamn important bastard doing important things. He's Shuey Time, and I am at Acadia on Twitter, and you can follow the show itself at StrangefulPod.
Yes, and if you have a minute, please rate and review us wherever you listen to the show from. It will really help us get noticed by new listeners. And hey, you can tell your friends too.
If you have any, not like me. See, I told my friend Melissa, and she listens. So that's how easy it is.
Yeah, well, I was about to say, what am I, mincemeat over here? I'm your friend.
Well, no, but you're an employee now.
Oh, God. The ranks have changed.
Yep, everything's changed. We're friends. We're friends when we do other fun stuff like trivia.
There we go.
That's
different. True. That's true.
By the way, Friday nights at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, if I have internet, then we played Trivia Murder Party, and you're more than welcome to come play that too.
Yeah, so the fucking like hurricanes and winds and rains, I need you to get away from North Carolina.
Yeah, I know, right? And if you got a whole bunch of money and you don't want to have some of it, then you can go to patreon.com/strangeful and sign up to be a patron and get free stuff and fun extras.
Ooh.
So that's something you could do as well.
Very cool.
I guess that wraps it up,
Yeah, it does.
Operation Mincemeat has been swallowed hook, line, and sinker.
Love it. Well, be sure you count your blessings.
That's right. Bye-bye.